The words hit me harder than the heart attack that landed me in this hospital bed. My sister spat them like venom, her face twisted with a hatred I couldn't understand. You'll die, and no one will even remember your name. Betrayal has many forms, but hearing it from your own blood, when you're weak, hooked up to machines, staring at your own fragile mortality, cuts the deepest. For a moment, I thought she wanted me gone. Not just gone from this room, but erased. Forgotten. Buried twice, once in the ground, and once in memory. My chest ached worse than before, though this time it wasn't the failing heart that hurt. It was the cruel realization that the people you expect to lift you up may be the ones pushing you down. Revenge crossed my mind in that instant. So did redemption. So did karma. Which path would be mine? I didn't know. But I knew her words had set something burning inside me, something that would not let me lie still. My name is Simon, and I was 55 when the doctor said I was lucky to survive. I didn't feel lucky. I felt exposed, humiliated even, lying in that sterile room while my eldest sister, Veronica, leaned close and made me feel smaller than a man should ever feel. She was always the strong one, successful in business, respected in the family, the one people turned to. And me? I was the brother who never quite measured up. My woodworking shop had closed years ago. My marriage ended before it had the chance to grow old. My children kept their distance, busy with their own lives. Maybe she saw me as a failure, a man whose name would fade like smoke. But that night, after the nurses dimmed the lights and the ward grew quiet, I replayed her words until they burned in my skull. No one will even remember your name. I lay awake wondering, was she right? Was I really that insignificant? Or was there still time, still breath in my body, to carve out a different ending? The beeping of the monitor kept me tethered to life. Every beat said, not yet. And with each beat, I felt a decision forming. If my sister believed I would die forgotten, then I would prove her wrong. Not by shouting, not by arguing, but by leaving behind something she could never erase. I didn't know where to begin. I didn't have money, or a business, or a family circle that cared to gather. But I had skills. My hands, though tired and scarred, still remembered the feel of wood, the patience of shaping raw material into something useful, something beautiful. Maybe redemption was hiding there, in the work I had almost abandoned. The next morning, the nurse wheeled in a young orderly, a boy no older than 19. His name tag read Kelvin. He adjusted my 4-line clumsily, and when I joked that he handled it like a carpenter hammering nails in the dark, he laughed shyly. He told me his father left when he was little, and his mother worked nights. No one taught him much except how to survive. His words stayed with me long after he left the room. Something clicked in my mind then. I had no legacy, no fortune, no great family honor. But maybe I could give what I knew to boys like him, lost, drifting, looking for someone to show them how to build instead of break. Maybe that was how I could answer my sister's curse. The thought gave me strength. I started sitting up more, forcing myself to walk the sterile hallways with the physiotherapist. Each step was painful, but each one reminded me I wasn't finished yet. I had work to do. When I was discharged weeks later, the air outside smelled sharper, fresher, like the world had been waiting for me. Veronica didn't come to pick me up. She didn't even call. But I no longer expected her to. I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking forward. Back at home, the silence of my empty apartment pressed on me. Dust lay thick on the shelves where I once displayed small wooden carvings. My tools were rusted, tucked away in boxes I hadn't opened in years. My hands trembled when I picked up a chisel again. The first cuts were clumsy. But as the days passed, I remembered. The wood spoke back to me, steady and patient, forgiving of my hesitation. I needed a place to take this beyond my 4 walls. That's when I found the youth center 3 blocks from my street. A faded sign read Riverside Community Hub, the paint peeling but the doors wide open. Inside, kids lounged on worn couches, some restless, some wary. A woman named Teresa, the coordinator, greeted me with tired eyes but a warm smile. When I offered to run a free woodworking class, she raised her eyebrows in surprise. Are you sure anyone will show up? She asked. Let's find out, I replied. The first Saturday, 3 boys wandered in. One of them was Kelvin, the orderly from the hospital. My heart jolted when I saw him, as though fate itself had nudged me here. They were skeptical at first, laughing when I handed them blocks of wood and simple tools. But when I showed them how to sand an edge, how to fit 2 pieces together without nails, their eyes lit up with the small magic of creation. By the end of that hour, they each held something in their hands, a crude shape, a rough joint, but it was theirs. And for the first time in a long while, I felt alive. Each week, more kids came. Boys, girls, teenagers with hard eyes and hidden wounds. They listened, they worked, they laughed. And slowly, so slowly, I felt my sister's words fading from my chest. Not forgotten, but transformed into fuel. Still, her voice lurked in the back of my mind. When you die, no one will even remember your name. We would see. Because I had begun to write my name in the grain of wood, in the calloused hands of the young, in the future they would carry forward. And if karma had its way, one day, she would learn that names are not remembered because of wealth or pride. They are remembered because of love planted in places that outlive us. The smell of sawdust clung to my clothes again, and I liked it. For years, I had thought that scent belonged to my past, the workshop I closed down, the dreams I abandoned. But now, standing in the youth center with half-broken tables and kids arguing over sandpaper, it felt like the start of something new. Word spread quickly. One boy told his cousin, another dragged along a neighbor, and soon the room grew crowded every Saturday. They weren't polite children. Some cursed under their breath, some rolled their eyes at me, some tested how far they could push. But when they held a finished piece, no matter how rough, it softened them. They were proud, and that pride became mine. One afternoon, after the kids left, Teresa leaned against the doorway, her arms crossed. "You've woken this place up," she said. I haven't seen them this focused in a long time. I shrugged, wiping dust from my hands. "It's just wood." "No," she said firmly. "It's you." Her words stayed with me. They warmed me, but they also made me uneasy. Because I knew who would never say them, my own family. Veronica hadn't called once since the hospital. Neither had my younger brother, Martin. I sometimes wondered if they spoke of me behind closed doors, laughing at my small attempts to matter. They had their careers, their big houses, their family photographs lined up in neat frames. And me? I had a noisy room full of kids carving their names into blocks of pine. But every time that bitterness rose, I forced myself back to the wood. Revenge could wait. Karma had its own clock. My task was here now. One boy, in particular, kept pulling my attention. Kelvin. He showed up early, stayed late, and watched me with a seriousness the others lacked. His hands were quick, steady, hungry to learn. He rarely spoke about his life, but I saw the shadows in his eyes. He reminded me of myself at 16, angry, restless, aching for someone to notice. One evening, as he packed up his work, I asked, "What keeps you coming back?" He hesitated, then muttered, "Here, no one looks at me like I'm trash." The words cut deep. I thought of Veronica, of the way she looked at me on that hospital bed. Maybe Kelvin and I weren't so different. Maybe that's why I felt drawn to him, like teaching him was a second chance at fixing the broken boy I once was. But life doesn't soften just because you find a little purpose. One Sunday morning, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Clara. Her voice was strained. "Simon, you should come to Veronica's house. She's been saying things." I almost laughed. Veronica had always been saying things. But I went. Her house stood tall and polished, the kind that made neighbors whisper about success. Inside, I found her in the living room, propped up by pillows, sipping tea like a queen on a throne. Her eyes landed on me with the same sharpness I remembered. "Well, look who survived," she said dryly. I forced a smile. "You sound disappointed." Clara slipped out quietly, leaving us alone. Veronica tilted her head. "I hear you're playing teacher now. Carving wood with street kids." She said it like it was a disease. "Do you think that will change who you are?" One man with a box of tools can't erase 55 years of failure. Her words struck me, but this time I didn't break. Instead, I felt a strange calm. I thought of Kelvin sanding a smooth edge, of Teresa's tired smile, of the laughter that filled the youth center. Maybe not, I said softly. But it's changing them. And that's enough. Her lips tightened. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not hatred, but something closer to fear. I left her house with my chest burning, but not from pain. It was fire. She wanted me to feel small. Instead, she had just confirmed how much I'd grown. The weeks rolled on, and the youth center became my second home. We built birdhouses, small stools, shelves. Nothing fancy, but each piece had weight, substance. And in every nail hammered straight, I saw their lives bending toward something sturdier. But shadows don't disappear so easily. One night, after class, Kelvin lingered behind. His hands shook as he put tools back into their box. "What's wrong?" I asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "They want me in. A gang. They said if I don't join, I'll regret it." The room went quiet. My heart clenched. I had known this moment would come, the world tugging him back to its claws. "You don't have to," I said firmly. "You have a choice." He looked at me, his eyes wet with anger. "What choice?" "My mother can't protect me. The police don't care. They said if I don't join, they'll come for her." "What would you do?" I had no easy answer. My own youth was full of wrong turns. But I saw in him the boy I once wished someone had saved. "I'd fight," I said at last. "Not with fists, not with knives. With something they can't touch. Skills. Work. A future. If you stay with me, I'll fight with you." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. That night, I realized teaching woodwork was no longer enough. I had to protect these kids from more than splinters and crooked cuts. And maybe, just maybe, this was how my revenge would come. Not by shouting at my sister or proving myself to her, but by raising an army of forgotten children who would stand as my true legacy. Names have power. I didn't realize that until I saw my own etched into the grain of a stool the kids made for me. They sanded it smooth, carved for Mr. Simon on the side, and presented it with grins that made me feel 10 years younger. I sat on that stool every Saturday, watching them work. And for the first time in my life, my name didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a seed planted in soil, growing quietly, beyond the reach of anyone's scorn. But names also carried curses. And Veronica's voice still followed me, a ghost repeating, "No one will remember you." Kelvin's situation grew worse. He confessed one evening that the gang cornered him outside a corner store, warning him that time was running out. I walked him home that night, my heart tight. His mother, a thin woman with eyes sunken from exhaustion, opened the door. She thanked me softly, as if I had done something extraordinary just by walking beside her son. I couldn't sleep afterward. The boy's fear crawled into my chest. I thought of my own father, a stern man who died before I turned 20. He never taught me softness, never shielded me from the streets that chewed me up. Maybe that's why I failed so many times. I carried the wounds of a boy left alone. But Kelvin was not going to be left alone. Not if I could help it. One rainy afternoon, as I prepared tools for class, Teresa pulled me aside. "Simon," she said carefully, "there's something you should know. Your sister came by yesterday." My chest tightened. "Veronica?" She nodded. She didn't stay long. "Just asked questions about what you're doing here." She didn't sound supportive. I laughed bitterly. She never is. Teresa touched my arm. She looked pale, tired, like someone carrying more weight than she admits. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to hold on to the image of Veronica as strong, sharp, unshakable, the sister who spat at me when I was weak. But something in Teresa's voice unsettled me. That night, I called Clara my sister-in-law. Her sigh over the phone told me more than words. "She's not well, Simon. High blood pressure, diabetes. The doctor suspects something with her kidneys. But you know Veronica, she won't admit weakness. She just lashes out." I closed my eyes. Part of me felt satisfaction, a cruel whisper of justice. Another part, quieter but insistent, felt sorrow. Because for all her cruelty, she was still my sister. And that war inside me, between revenge and compassion, kept me awake until dawn. Weeks passed. The youth center thrived. Kelvin built his first full chair, sturdy enough to hold his own weight. He smiled when he sat in it, a smile so rare it startled me. I clapped him on the back, proud as any father. But outside those walls, shadows thickened. The gang didn't let up. One evening, Kelvin showed up with a split lip. He muttered something about falling. But I knew better. "Do you want me to talk to them?" I asked. He shook his head violently. "No, that'll only make it worse. Just don't give up on me." His words pierced me. No one had ever begged me like that before. Not even my own children. "I won't," I promised. And I meant it. Then came the call. Clara's voice trembled. "Simon, it's Veronica." She collapsed. "The doctors say her kidneys are failing. Dialysis, maybe worse. She's asking for you." I froze. The same woman who spat at me by the hospital bed now wanted me at hers. I hung up and sat alone for a long time. The kids' laughter from earlier still echoed in my ears, but so did Veronica's venom. Part of me wanted to ignore the call, to let karma run its course, to let her feel the emptiness she once wished upon me. But another part whispered that this might be my final test, not of strength, but of heart. I went. The hospital smelled the same as when I had lain there months earlier, machines humming, air too clean to feel alive. Veronica looked smaller now, her skin yellowed, her body wrapped in blankets. When her eyes found mine, something cracked inside me. "You came," she whispered, her voice thin. I stood at the foot of her bed, torn between pity and fury. "You didn't think I would?" She tried to smile, but it faltered. "I said terrible things. I didn't think you mattered. But now, lying here, I wonder if anyone will remember me." Her words shocked me. The same curse she cast on me had returned to haunt her. Karma had a cruel way of folding life back on itself. I didn't answer right away. I thought of Kelvin, of Teresa, of all the kids who now carried pieces of my name in their hands and hearts. And I thought of Veronica, surrounded by wealth, yet utterly alone. At last, I said quietly, "It's not too late to matter, but you'll have to want it." Her eyes filled with tears. Whether from regret or fear, I couldn't tell. I left the hospital with a storm inside me. I had no answers yet, only questions. Would I forgive her? Should I? Or was it better to let karma finish the work she began with her cruelty? As I stepped out into the cold night air, one thought stayed with me. Maybe the real revenge wasn't making her suffer. Maybe it was living in such a way that her words would never touch me again. Still, I couldn't shake the image of her frail body, whispering about being forgotten. Karma had caught her. But what would I do with it? The rain came heavy that week, hammering rooftops and flooding the gutters. I walked through it to the youth center, soaked to the bone, but determined not to cancel class. The kids were already there, waiting. Some whittled scraps of wood, others joked too loudly, trying to mask the tension that always hovered in the air outside those walls. Kelvin wasn't among them. I waited, tried to focus on teaching the others, but my eyes kept darting to the door. When he finally slipped in, his hood dripping, his face told me everything. His left eye was swollen. His knuckles were scraped raw. "Kelvin," I said softly, pulling him aside. "What happened?" He muttered. "They caught me again. Said next time, they'll come for my mom." The anger in me boiled. I wanted to storm out, find those boys, and show them the sharp end of every tool I owned. But I wasn't that man anymore. Violence would only chain us to the same cycle. "You don't have to fight this alone," I told him. He looked at me desperate. "Then help me. Please." That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my small apartment, torn between two storms. The phone call from Clara still echoed in my ear. "She's getting worse. Dialysis isn't working. If she doesn't get a donor soon." Veronica, the sister who wished me forgotten, was now hanging on by threads, her pride stripped away, her future uncertain. I had visited her once, but each time I thought of going back, I froze. At the same time, Kelvin's face haunted me. A boy on the edge, staring into the abyss I once knew too well. His plea wasn't for woodworking lessons. It was for survival. I stood at my workbench, staring at a block of wood under the lamplight. My hands twitched to carve, to shape, to control something solid. But this wasn't about wood. This was about lives, fragile and splintered. I realized then, I couldn't save both. Not fully. My sister or that boy. One demanded my blood by family ties, the other by the bond we built in sawdust and trust. The following Saturday, the youth center buzzed with energy, but Kelvin didn't come. Halfway through the session, I slipped out, heart pounding, and made my way to his neighborhood. The streets were tighter here, shadows thicker. I found him sitting on a stoop, his head in his hands. "They gave me until tomorrow," he said without looking up. "If I don't join, they'll hurt her." "Kelvin," I said firmly, crouching beside him, "your life is more than their threats. I won't let them take you." He looked at me, eyes hollow. "You're not my father." The words stung, but I didn't flinch. "No, I'm not, but I care like one, and sometimes that's enough." His jaw tightened, and I knew he was holding back tears. I sat with him until the streetlights buzzed on, making a silent promise I wasn't sure how to keep. 2 days later, I was back in the hospital. Veronica looked worse. Her skin had turned sallow, her eyes sunken. Clara hovered in the corner, her face tired. When Veronica saw me, she reached out weakly. "Simon, I don't want to die forgotten." The words sliced through me. They were the echo of my own fear, thrown back like a cruel mirror. I wanted to spit the truth at her, that she deserved this loneliness, that karma had finally answered her cruelty. But when I looked at her, small and broken, I couldn't. Instead, I said, "You're not forgotten. Not yet. But you have to choose what you leave behind." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I was cruel to you. All those years. I thought success would keep me safe. But it left me empty. And you," she coughed, her voice breaking, "you're the one who matters now." I stood frozen. A part of me longed to forgive, to soothe her. Another part whispered that this was revenge enough, watching her realize too late what truly mattered. When I left the hospital that evening, the city felt heavier, pressing down with choices I didn't want to make. Veronica was fading, Kelvin was cornered, and I was split in two. Teresa found me the next day at the center. She placed a hand on my shoulder. "You can't carry them both, Simon. You have to decide where your heart belongs." I stared at the kids laughing around us, their hands stained with dust and glue, their futures fragile but still unwritten. Then I thought of Veronica, lying in that sterile bed, grasping at redemption in her final days. I had spent my whole life living under her shadow. Maybe this was my chance to step out. But blood ties cut deep. Would I walk away from my sister when she needed me most? Or would I let karma finish its work while I chose a different family, the one I carved from broken pieces? That night, sleep refused me again. I sat at my bench, carving slowly, the blade gliding across the wood. Each curl that fell felt like a piece of me being shaped into something new. When I finished, I stared at the small figure in my hand. It was simple, a man standing tall, holding the hand of a boy. My name was carved at the base. I placed it in my pocket. Tomorrow, I would need it. Because tomorrow, I would decide who I truly belonged to. The sister who cursed my name, or the boy who begged me not to leave him alone. Either choice would carve my legacy. And either way, revenge or karma would follow. The day came heavy, like the air itself carried a warning. Kelvin hadn't shown up again. The gang's deadline hung over him like a blade, and I knew one more misstep could end him. At the same time, Clara's call pressed on me like a stone. "Simon, the doctors don't think Veronica has long. If you want to see her, you should come now." 2 lives pulling at me. One born from blood, the other from choice. I held the small carving in my hand, the man and the boy standing side by side. It felt warm, alive, as if it carried the answer I'd been avoiding. I walked to the hospital first. The ward was hushed, the smell of disinfectant thick. Veronica lay smaller than ever, her body almost swallowed by the sheets. Machines hummed faintly beside her. Clara gave me a weary look and slipped out, leaving us alone. Her eyes fluttered open. Simon, her voice was no stronger than a sigh. I sat at the edge of the bed, my jaw tight. She tried to smile. I knew you'd come. I wanted to say. I was wrong. About you. About everything. The words, if they had come years ago, might have healed something in me. But now, they just landed like dust on a wound too deep to close. You said I'd die forgotten, I whispered. But look at you now. A house full of riches, yet no one sits here but me. Her lips trembled. I was jealous, Simon. You always had heart. And I thought heart was weakness. But it's the only thing I don't have now. For a long moment, I just stared at her. Part of me wanted to forgive, to let the past dissolve. Another part wanted her to choke on her regret, to feel the emptiness she wished on me. I placed the carving on her bedside table. The man and the boy, holding hands. That's my name now, I said softly. Carved in the lives I've touched. Not in your approval. Not in this family. In them. Her eyes filled with tears. She reached for me, but I didn't take her hand. I stood instead. Goodbye, Veronica. Her sob followed me out of the room, thin and broken. I didn't look back. By the time I reached Kelvin's neighborhood, the sky was burning red with sunset. I spotted him across the street, cornered by 3 boys older, harder, wearing the uniform of the streets. Arrogance and threat. One shoved him. Last chance, Kelvin. You in or not? I crossed the road before Kelvin could answer. My voice cut sharp through the air. He's not. The boys turned, sneering at me. And who are you, old man? I stood tall, meeting their gaze without flinching. The one who taught him how to build. Not break. If you want him, you'll have to take me first. For a tense moment, I thought fists would fly. But something in my stance, or maybe the truth in my words, made them hesitate. One spat on the ground, muttered a curse, and they stalked off. Kelvin's shoulders sagged with relief. His eyes shone, wide and trembling. Why'd you come? I placed a hand on his shoulder. Because you asked me not to give up on you. And I don't break promises. He nodded, his chest rising and falling fast. In his eyes, I saw more than gratitude. I saw belief. And in that moment, I knew I had chosen right. Days later, word reached me that Veronica was gone. No big gathering, no endless line of mourners. Just a quiet service, attended by a handful of relatives, polite but distant. I didn't go. Instead, I sat in the youth center, surrounded by kids sanding, hammering, laughing. The stool with my name carved into it sat solid beneath me. Kelvin worked nearby, focused, his hands steady as he shaped wood into something strong and lasting. Teresa walked past and whispered, "She didn't win, did she?" I shook my head. No. Karma did. When the class ended, Kelvin lingered. He placed something in my hands, a carving of his own. Rough but clear. A man and a boy, side by side. For you, he said quietly. I stared at it, my throat tightening. My name wasn't on it, but it didn't need to be. Because I knew, when I was gone, they would remember. Not for the mistakes, not for the failures, not for the venom of a bitter sister, but for the lives I shaped, one piece of wood, one boy, one moment at a time. And that was enough. No revenge could be sweeter. No karma could be truer. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.